It is Takeaway Tuesday for Week 9 of the NFL season. Aaron Rodgers Tuesday if you watch the Pat McAfee show. And today we are going to break down all of the results from this week's games, talk a little bit of stats, and see how I did with my predictions last Thursday leading into Week 9, throw them up on the scoreboard, and then we can go home thinking about Week 10 this upcoming weekend. Let's get into it. All right, welcome back in, ladies and gentlemen, and let's start breaking down Week 9 of the NFL season. See just how I did with my predictions last week. Let me say, I've already obviously looked at the results, and it's not too shabby. I thought it was going to be worse there for a hot minute, but not too shabby. Let's go ahead and start with the Thursday night game, which was Titans at Steelers. I predicted that the Steelers would pull it off. I said that I wanted Will Levis to go yard again, and I wanted to lean for the Titans, but I called the Steelers, and the Steelers win. I start this one off 1-0. You gotta love it, gotta love it. So let's keep it rolling. Will Levis did do good. He just didn't look as good as he had looked last week. Still went 22 of 39 for 262 yards and an interception. It's not bad. For a rookie, he has a ton of poise. What I'll say is that arm reminds me of the good old Brett Favre days up in Green Bay. He can stand any sort of pressure. The sacks don't seem to get to him. I think Will Levis is going to be a dangerous weapon for Tennessee for years to come. And I think that there are definitely other teams that passed up on Will Levis early in that draft that are now going to possibly regret having done that as we kind of move forward here. Kenny Pickett still didn't look all that hot to me. Kenny Pickett went 19 of 30, 160 yards and a touchdown. It just still feels stale. He still doesn't feel like he has an identity on that team after the injury. He's kind of slowed himself down. Najee still looking good. Deontay Johnson finally breaks that long touchdown drought, and he gets into the end zone. 7 receptions, 90 yards, and a touchdown. The Steelers pull it off. I call the Steelers. That is 1-0. On to the next game. We will talk Dolphins at Chiefs from Germany. If you live in Mountain Time like I do, that was a 7 a.m. game on the NFL Network, which is blocked out if you don't pay for it. So I didn't actually watch that game. But I got all the stats for you. And I can tell you that the Chiefs still don't look as good as they should. You know, it's still just not. Taylor Swift doesn't show up, and they don't look as good as they should. However, they still get the dub. Them getting the dub gives me my first loss here, and that is going to take us to 1-1 on the day. Yeah, that's a rough one. I thought that the Dolphins were going to come out and show off. I thought that Tyreek Hill was going to blow him up kind of on his revenge tour. Turns out the Chiefs know exactly how to cover up Tyreek Hill, and they stifled him, kept Tua Tagovailoa down under 200 passing yards. Just wasn't the Dolphins' day, and it begs the question, are the Dolphins actually playoff caliber? Are they actually championship caliber when the only teams that they can actually beat are under 500? Patrick Mahomes didn't look that good either, though. He had 2 touchdowns. He was 20 for 30 with 185 pass yards. But they still look disheveled. I don't know what the hell's going on with them. Their defense is definitely holding them up right now. Patty has said that himself. He thinks they have the best defense in the league. I don't think that is the truth. But I do think that defense is going to keep their heads above water, keep them from drowning, and push them to the postseason. Again, I called Miami. Miami lost. I am 1-1. On to the next one. Dem boys, not the Cowboys. Green Bay, baby. Packers at Rams. Rams at Packers. Where am I at today? That's the real question. Holy crap. The Packers, man. Look at that. I called the Packers. The Packers pull off a win. That takes me to 2-1. The Packers this week looked like they knew how to play at least semi-pro football. It wasn't perfect. And that's something I keep telling all the people who give me flack about the Packers, is this season was never going to be perfect in the way that everybody kind of expects it to be. And with that being said, Rodgers' first season wasn't perfect either. Do I think that Jordan Love is the quarterback of the future for Green Bay? No. Currently, the answer is a solid no. I would almost go to the draft and see what I could find. The quarterback class this year in the draft is going to be pretty lights out. So if I were Green Bay, I would think about going to the draft or even looking into some free agent quarterbacks and seeing, what we could do, bring in some veteran mentality to this team. But the Packers win, taking me to 2-1. They won 20-3. The Rams without Stafford just looked disheveled and lost. Ripping just 13-28, an interception, 130 yards, just not going his way that day. Jordan Love, 20-26, 228 yards and a touchdown. Aaron Jones actually started to kind of look like a running back again. Musgraves gets his first touchdown as a tight end in Green Bay. Congratulations to him. Cooper Kupp was pretty quiet. 2 receptions, 48 yards. I mean, the Rams just don't look the way the Rams typically look. And to, even without their quarterback, to get kind of beaten down by a wounded Green Bay team, probably not the best feeling for them. But for me, go Pack, go. I got to love it. And looking forward to hopefully learning a little bit more about this team every week. I go 2-1 with a Green Bay win. On to the next game, Vikings at Falcons. I'm going to lose this one to go 2-2 as the Falcons fall to the Vikings. Josh Dobbs, man. Joshua Dobbs comes on in there. They're calling him the Pasternaut right now. So give it to him, man. I thought he looked absolutely awful for Arizona. Honestly, his stats, I think, don't represent the effort that he put in to seal this win for Minnesota. 20-30, 158 yards, 2 touchdowns. One of those touchdowns, the game-winning drive. Absolutely incredible. The Falcons are lost. Every time I feel like they're making positive strides, they lose it. London was out this week. They start Heineke. It just doesn't feel. Arthur Smith cuts off the mustache out of embarrassment. It's I don't know what is happening in Atlanta, but it's not gonna get the job done going forward. I would expect some house cleaning to start happening in the coming weeks, and if not in the coming weeks, the end of the season, I think Arthur Smith might be looking for a new gig, and they are definitely gonna have to hunt for a quarterback, because what is for sure is that Ritter is not the quarterback of the future for them. And Heineke can only do so much. He wasn't the quarterback of the future for Washington, and I don't think he is here. I think he's going to be a career backup, as is Desmond Ritter. The Falcons fall to the Vikings 31-28 to put me at 2-2. All right. Let's go to the next one. Cardinals at Browns. Not a whole lot to say about this in general, as I'm pretty sure that the Cardinals were held to like 75 total yards. Just nothing in the tank for this team. That Cleveland defense showed up and just absolutely butchered them. Deshaun Watson comes back in, throws 2 touchdowns, 219 pass yards. That team, I think they were waiting for Deshaun to come back. It's hard to have a $250 million quarterback and not want him to be there, not want him to be putting points on the board for your team and helping them out. Kareem Hunt still did the majority of the positive rush work for the Browns. Mari Cooper looking pretty mid. He doesn't look like he used to look when he was a Raider or when he was a Cowboy. I think that he's on the downturn, but he's still going to lead that team. He's still the better of their receiver core for sure. I get to go up to 3-2. I called the Browns, and the Browns pull it off. Great for them. Great for their fan base. And man, that AFC North just looks absolutely vicious. Let's get into the next one. The next one, Commanders at Patriots. I get this one right to go 4-2 as I called the Commanders over the Patriots. Let me just tell you. This wasn't Howell's best performance, but I think the glimpses that you see of positivity out of Howell are more than enough to make you believe that he can go out there and he can consistently win football games. The thing that people don't get is that winning is not always this pretty thing. Winning isn't always like you just go out there and you decimate your opponents. Guys like Mahomes have made winning look that way. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, those guys like to just get out in front and start, shooting those balls down the field and get out so far ahead that there's just no hope. The Jets last week, not this week, but last week showed that the wins don't have to be pretty. It's just about getting the dubs on the board. I think Washington is in that same boat. Howell with, just 2017 Commanders beat the Patriots. Howell 29 of 45, a touchdown and interception, and 325 pass yards. Mac Jones 24 of 44, 220 yards, a touchdown and interception. Those guys were throwing the ball heavy all day. The most rushing attempts for Washington was 18 for 63 yards and a touchdown on Bijan Robinson. And Stevenson for the Patriots went 9 attempts, 1 touchdown, 87 yards. Wasn't really a big rush day. There was a lot of yards there, but 44 passing attempts from Mac Jones and 45 from Howell. That is a lot of passing. It is a passing league now. And like I said, what is for sure out of Sam Howell is that he can win games. It doesn't have to be the prettiest. It's just about putting dubs on the board and moving towards the postseason. Mac Jones, I question whether or not he can. It's just so hit or miss with him. I still don't feel confident that you can even squeak by in ugly game situations and put dubs on the board if you're the Patriots and Mac Jones. And the question still remains, is Belichick the greatest coach of all time? If this is how the post-Brady eras go, or was Tom Brady just making Belichick's job so easy that it looks like he's the greatest, but maybe, just maybe, he is not. Commanders over New England 20-17 to move me to 4-2. Gotta love it. All right. Let's go to the next game. That was Bears at Saints. And I called the Saints. The Saints win this one to take me to 5-2. The Bears are the Bears at this point, you guys. That's really what we should get out of this. Bagnett or whatever I'm never going to get his name right, guys. I don't care. I'm a Packers fan. That guy is a flash in the pan. He's not going to be there for very long. They still like Fields, and if you don't like Fields, they're going to go to a draft class and try to get another quarterback. But Bagnett, 18 of 30, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 220 yards. Derek Carr, 211 yards on 25 of 34 with 2 touchdowns. Taysom Hill starting to look a lot more like Taysom Hill again this season. Guys, Cole Kmet led their receiving core. Their team isn't that bad. Is where I always kind of get lost with the Bears. Is everybody wants to blame Fields and all this stuff. I think it's just a collaboration of things that aren't working for them. Because when you're looking at their roster isn't hot garbage. They've obviously worked hard and they've gotten good draft picks and all this stuff, but they are lost. They're lost in the sauce, and that's coming from a Packers fan who's also currently in the weeds in our own division. So I think that the Bears need to rebuild. Actually rebuild. Not just do one piece here, one piece there. Maybe you just say, hey, in 2026, we're going to be able to contend for a title. But right now, it's all about getting the pieces on the board where you need them to be and start trying to make those positive strides. Maybe this year is a losing year, but next year you aim for that above 500 mark. And then the year after that, that 2025, 2026 year, you start to build on that, and maybe you make a run at trying to get to the postseason. I mean, look at the Lions. The Lions have done that for years and years and years now. Is kind of run mid, run really bad, and then they kind of rebuild a little bit, and they run mid, and then it just kind of doesn't work, and they run really bad. but it's finally paid off for them. Where 2 or 3 years ago they were really just, you knew they were the bottom and they weren't going to get there. Last year they were looking pretty mid. They start to have their weapons show up. Goff starts to fit into the system. Amon-Ra starts to look like the sun god that he is. Like, it's just they chalked it up kind of slowly and steadily, and now this year it looks like they're not only going to win the division, but they could possibly win playoff games, which for them will be the first time in decades that they've won a playoff game. So I think the Bears need to rebuild. The Saints are going to run mid. The Saints are going to run mid this whole year. You can't just keep relying on the same things. Carr doesn't look like he was the fit that they were expecting him to be. Kamara can only do so much. It's how I feel about Saquon in New York. You can't put the whole team on one guy's back. It's just not the way that that's going to work. They're going to run mid for a minute, but I still bet that Raiders fans out there are wishing that Derek Carr was still playing at home, because then maybe, just maybe, Davante Adams would have more than 5 fantasy points a week right now. He got outplayed by Jacoby Myers. I'm sure we're going to chit-chat about it here in a minute. But wow. Just wow. Bet Raiders fans are just so upset that they were so bad to Derek Carr now. Bears lose to the Saints 24-17, and that puts me to 5-2, y'all. Not too shabby at about the halfway point here. Let's get into the next game, which is Seahawks at Ravens. Not a lot to talk about. The Seahawks were absolutely mind-boggled and blown out. 37-3, Baltimore wins that game, and that moves me to 6-2. As I said, the Ravens were going to beat them. I thought there would be so much more positivity coming out of the Seahawks camp this week, and they just got absolutely shut down. Geno throws an interception on 157 yards, 13 of 28. Lamar Jackson looking postseason ready for sure. 21 of 26, 187 yards. Walker got shut down in the run game, and once Walker got shut down and the points started to get out of hand, the run game got abandoned. They had to go to the pass, and the Baltimore Ravens just absolutely destroyed them. Baltimore wins 37-3 in what is a blowout hosing if I have ever seen one before. On to the next game. Next game is going to be Bucks at Texans. Sorry, I'm sure you can hear my child. He's being a little loud today, but it's all good. He's just playing, having a good time. So hopefully, if you're hearing that in the background, that's just what that is. All right, yeah. Bucks at Texans. I called Bucks because I thought that C.J. Stroud was just, he was been kind of hit or miss. And boy, oh boy, was I wrong, as the Texans beat the Bucks 39-37. It's a close one, but C.J. Stroud puts on an MVP performance, going for 5 touchdowns, 30 of 42, and 470 pass yards. Just amazing. The turnaround, the fact that like now I've been seeing analysts call him a top 10 quarterback when he's been all right, but he's been playing mid, below mid most of the year so far. But he definitely puts Baker to sleep right there. The kill shot at the end, I saw the picture of Baker just like on the sideline, just looking all disheveled. Like, C.J. Stroud rocked the baby to sleep that night for sure. He was on one. He was in the zone. You don't even have to highlight any of the other players. Like, Singletary did all right. Dell did all right. I'm sure he's going to be on the fantasy wire all day today. C.J. Stroud with an MVP caliber performance. Can he build off of it next week, or is he a one-hit wonder? That is the question that kind of looms here now. But Texans win 39-37, moving me to 6-3 on the day. On to the next one. Colts at Panthers. I called Colts. The Colts win 27-13. The Panthers, again, guys, like the Panthers pick up the one win. And of course, they picked it up the week that I was like, pack your bags, fans. You're out of here. This thing is over. But they just can't. They can't keep their head above water. I don't think Bryce Young is entirely the problem. I think that they're going to need to rebuild. do a lot of different things to make that team powerful again. It's not the Cam Newton years for sure, but Gardner Minshew leads that team to a victory, 17-26, 127 yards and a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor still kind of mid. I don't know if he's breaking out of whatever funk he's in. And Michael Pittman Jr., 8 receptions, 64 yards, leading the Colts to a victory, 27-13 to take me to 7-3. And now I know for a fact we're going to get into the small area of weeds that I built for myself, kind of on these hot take projections for this week. On to Giants at Raiders. I called the Giants, and I'll tell you why. The Raiders look so disheveled, and with their whole team falling apart, McDaniels and their GM getting ousted, it just looked like their year was in the bag. They sat Garoppolo to play O'Connell, and everything to me just felt like they were going to absolutely do awful. And boy, was I wrong. They beat the Giants 30-6. That takes me to 7-4 on the day. The Giants are lost. Tommy DeVito is obviously not going to be the guy. Daniel Jones down for the year now with a torn ACL. Wishing him obviously a speedy recovery. You never wish to see that out of any player. Injuries are bad altogether. I know the Vikings had another Achilles injury. Pretty sure it was Cam Akers. Things go bad, they keep going bad. This league is full of big injuries this season for sure. Wishing Daniel Jones a speedy recovery, obviously. But, yeah, and I said it earlier. You can't have one player on your team just doing all of the work, all the heavy lifting. Saquon is always going to be my example of that. The Giants never really have a ton of weapons around Saquon. Their quarterback is never really the best quarterback in the league. And Saquon ends up kind of carrying the load. 16 attempts for 90 yards, no touchdowns. There's only so much the guy can do, and I wish that the Giants would trade him. Because if they would give that man a shot somewhere else, he could be amazing. But you're always going to look mid if your team is mid. And unfortunately, the Giants are subpar at best. They're below mid. They can't even hold their own. This was just an outright beating against a team that I'm not even saying, like, at this point the Raiders might not have been classified as easy work because it looks like that they're performing. But had the Giants defense even stood up a little bit, maybe this game gets tighter. If the Giants can get some points on the board, they need to go find a quarterback in free agency right now. Find somebody available to fill in, because if you don't have Tyrod, Daniel Jones isn't the guy. Tommy DeVito is definitely not the guy. Otherwise, Giants, pack it up. Your year is done. Sorry to all the Giants fans out there, including my dad. I lose that one, like I said. That one's going to take me to 7-4, as I called the Giants for the upset, and the Raiders upset me with that, and they beat the Giants. On to Cowboys at Eagles. I called dem boys for the win, and the Eagles end up squeaking out the win 28-23. So I lose that one to go 7-5. And what I am going to say about this specific game is I said last week that this was a make or break game for the Dallas Cowboys. This is obviously they're playing against the best team in the NFC right now. They've had a lot of dominant victories this year, the Cowboys have, but playing against a real legitimate team was going to show whether or not they're as legitimate as people want them to look or want them to be. I'm going to say this. The loss to me does not make me think that they are not legit, because of all the effort that they put in order to try to win that game. Had CeeDee Lamb turned and dove off that catch, they win that game. Had Dak not stepped on the line, they at least go to overtime. Had the pass to the tight end not had his knee go down before the line, they win that game. Like, it's all little teeny tiny things that make me think that they're still legit. They just need to clean it up a little bit. The Eagles are still the Eagles, right? Like, that game could have been more dominant for them too, I think. But the Cowboys' defense is amazing. Micah Parsons is always an absolute freak. They didn't really get Pollard going, but it's really tough to get Pollard going when CeeDee Lamb has 11 receptions for almost 200 yards. You just don't need to have a run game if you're doing that. Jalen Hurts led both rushing and passing, obviously, for the Eagles. A.J. Brown still doing what A.J. Brown does. I lose this one, like I said, to go 7-5, but I still think the Cowboys look legit. And as the division boils down, when you're looking at it possibly being, Eagles and Cowboys and Lions to go, through into the playoffs, those are some vicious teams in the NFC this year. The AFC, to me, doesn't feel like it has as many of those, like, this is the dominant team happening. I'd love to lump the Niners into the NFC powerhouses. Hopefully the bye week did some stuff for them. But the Brock party is over to me, and I think this week we find out whether or not they can bounce back or whether or not their season is done now that Brock has tasted losses. But the NFC's playoff picture looks pretty vicious to me at this point in time. Again, I lose this one as the Eagles win 28-23. On to the Sunday night game, the Sunday night shootout, the Bengals and the Bills. Bills at Bengals. The first time they've played together in Cincinnati since the Damar Hamlin incident last year. And boy, they talked about it a lot. But you kind of saw that coming, right? Obviously, I mean, to me, Damar is obviously comeback player of the year the second that he strapped a helmet on and came back onto the team to begin with. You can argue a lot of other people for it, but that man almost died. There's nothing like coming back from death. So, you know what? Comeback player of the year goes to Damar. The Bengals win this one 24-18 to move me to 8-5. It was an absolute gun show again. Burrow 31-44, 348 yards and 2 touchdowns. Josh Allen 26 of 38, a touchdown, an interception, and 258 passing yards. Diggs obviously going off. Higgins looking really, really good. And Higgins, I keep sounding more and more like won't be a part of that team next year just due to cap space more so than actual needs. But the Bengals are back. The Bengals look absolutely like their postseason form from the last couple of years. Joe Burrow is back now with that calf finally looking healed. I know they had put some heat on it for a little while during that game. I'm sure he's not 100%, but he sure does look like it. Josh Allen proves to still be trigger happy with the interceptions, and he just had no deep ball threat to, like, they just had him locked up. He didn't look as good as you wanted him to. He also led their rushing yards. But that's what I'm saying, is there was not a whole lot open down the field, and he had no choice but to improvise. That game was an amazing game. Joe Burrow looking so patient, so calm, making the easy throws, going to the checkdowns, all the stuff that you want to see out of your Super Bowl caliber quarterback. In an AFC division that I don't feel looks as dominant as the NFC, Joe Burrow is going to be a light in there that says that there is still going to be somebody to dominate the further they get. If they can get up, I mean, AFC North does look vicious. They're all winning games. So hopefully they can get up the hill now, because I know they're at the bottom of their division. But you get up the hill, you get into the playoffs, and I think they can absolutely dominate it. I don't know that, I don't think the Steelers are better than them right now. Now the Bengals are finally back to just looking exactly how you'd expect. The Browns are hit or miss just because of their quarterback situation in the last couple of weeks. Their defense is still stiflingly dominant, but I still think the Bengals are the better team out of those two teams. The Ravens just seem to be on an island of their own right now. But how can Lamar and them do once the postseason comes a-knockin'? Bengals win 24-18 to take me to 8-5, and that will take us to the dumpster fire that was the Monday night game. Chargers at Jets. I called the Jets because I felt like with Aaron Rodgers being out there, he was out there yesterday throwing 3 5-step drops. He threw a 60-yard pass. He just looks healthy. He's looking like he's getting better. He's telling people that it's going to be, give him a few weeks and he might be back. I love what they're trying to do. Their offense could not get going. The receivers were not making plays for Zach Wilson. I don't think Zach was entirely the problem. But Zach is not Aaron Rodgers. And that gets more and more apparent as time goes on. I will also say, though, that the Jets' defense, to me, did not hold up their end of the bargain either, where normally they dominate. It's really tough. They just got beat. Herbert, 16 of 30 for 136 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. And Zach Wilson, 33 of 49, 263 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. He at least kept the interceptions to a minimal, but I know they had 4 or 5 fumbles, most of which went the other way. Wilson needs to handle the ball better, just control the ball and cut up field when he can. Don't run north to south, man. Don't head for the end zone, head for the first downs. I think that the Chargers are looking tip-top, getting back to normal. Eckler, 14 attempts, 47 yards, 2 touchdowns. Keenan Allen, 77 yards on 8 receptions. I think that they are looking better and better as the weeks are going on, and especially in the AFC West, where the teams don't look as good as normal. The Chiefs don't look as good as normal. The Broncos fans all this week were saying that the Super Bowl wasn't out of the question. I just think it is. I think that their year is still in the books. It's not. They just don't look as good as I think that they think that they do. The Raiders, this was a glint of light out of a just beat up couple of weeks, but I still think the Chargers are obviously better, and arguably the Chargers could beat the Kansas City team that we've seen these last couple weeks. I think the Chargers look better than them. The Chargers looked better than the Jets for sure. The Jets go home with a loss, and so do I. Chargers win 27-6, putting me to 8-6 on the day. 8-6. Not too bad of a week. I'll take a green light winning week whenever I possibly can. Love it. So that 8-6 this week puts me to 24-19 over the last 3 weeks. I'm still in the win column after a rough week 1 for me, which was week 7 of the NFL season. But right now, the momentum is in my direction. We're going to look to build on it. And when you guys come back to this channel on Thursday for Predictions Thursday, we're going to talk Week 10 football, and we're going to try to build off of all this positive momentum that I seem to be riding. Thank you guys again so much for joining me for another awesome Takeaway Tuesday. I appreciate the views. Drop some likes. Follow the channel if you haven't yet. Share these videos with all your fellow football fans. Come back and see me on Thursday for the next NFL video as we predict Week 10's games. And remember, guys, to do more than simply exist and come with me into the uncharted. Thanks, guys. I'll see you later.